Jnana-timirandasya jnananjana-shalakaya chakshurumritam tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachadine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Dasatani Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, I promised yesterday that we would continue reading what I started reading last Sunday. Yesterday I was supposed to read it and we didn't. And this was, excuse me, come a little closer to you. This was a letter which was written, that I wrote to a devotee who was having an issue with self-image. And I'm going to begin reading it again because there's a few points that I didn't make that I want to make again. Some of you may have heard it. I posted this letter on Facebook. It was posted again. And I don't know how you can access it, but it's there somewhere. I'm going to move a little closer to you, or move the camera a little closer because I don't have a microphone. And it will be better if I'm closer. You can hear better. Okay. You have analyzed correctly that you understand with your head that you're okay. It's very important. You understand with your head you're okay, but you don't feel that you were perfect enough. This is, all right, so I want to address this point. This is a very interesting point. I'm in a rocking chair, so I might rock a little bit. It's a very important point of the nature of how the mind works. You can think something, but it's not till you feel it that you're going to will it. And so we understand this, the three stages: thinking, feeling, and willing. We've heard that a lot. First there's the thought, then there's the feeling, then there's the willing. Some psychologists say, actually you get the feeling, then the thought. Then it goes back in that order. But whatever the case is, this is really an important point. I want to focus on this a little bit. So try to understand this, that if I know something, that this is how it is, but I don't feel this is how it is, then the knowing, because it's not affecting the feeling, is not going to affect the action, because feeling is the precursor to action. So it's thinking, feeling, and then willing. It's not thinking and willing. I mean, in some cases, for people who are extremely determined and very have clear intelligence, they can just pop the willing, the thinking becomes feeling and willing very quickly. But for most of us, we have this problem, and it's very important to understand it. And I've spoken about it before, but I want to speak about it a little in more length. We have this problem where if I understand something objectively, this is how it is. I know, like we might say, I know this doesn't make sense, but I feel this way. Like someone has a fear. I'm afraid to do this. And everyone says, why are you afraid? There's nothing to be afraid of. And you say, I know there's nothing to be afraid of, but I feel fear. I don't know why, but I feel fear. So now it doesn't really help you that much that you know there's nothing to be afraid of, because you're going to act on your feelings. Feelings are going to dictate your reality. And for many of us, our world, our subjective view of the world, which we consider to be objective, is based on how we feel. This is how I feel about it, and so that feeling becomes reality. Yes? You agree? Think about your life. Do you act on what you know? Will you only act until you feel? Well, let me put it within the context of the discussion we're having. The discussion we're having is discussion about self-esteem. Okay. Now, if you have a low, if you're not self-accepting, if you think you're worse than you really are, that's not objective. So let's say you're intelligent and you think, no, I'm not intelligent. Or let's say you're not fat, but you think you're fat. Or you're a good devotee, but you think you're not. And you think other people are more Krishna conscious that aren't really more Krishna conscious. And you might feel, I'm useless, I've been a devotee for so long. What's the point? So many other people are advancing, I'm not advancing. That all may be totally untrue. Nothing to do with objective reality. But that's how you feel. And because that's how you feel, that is your reality. And that's the problem with low self-esteem. Because you may know, either yourself or you may know someone else, who is capable, intelligent, attractive, and so forth, who thinks that they're stupid, ugly, and without ability. It's a feeling. It's not a reality. So, what creates the reality? Feeling then becomes willing. It becomes action. So, if I feel, this is very simple psychology. If I feel stupid, will I act intelligent? No. If I am intelligent, but I feel stupid, will I act intelligent? Not because I'm intelligent will I necessarily act intelligently. But mostly I will act based on how I feel about myself. And that's why even people who aren't so intelligent sometimes have a lot of self-confidence and become quite successful because they feel they can do it and they try and they get empowerment to do. You probably have that experience yourself on both sides of it, right? So I might be thinking, I'm kind of a useless devotee. Everyone else is more Krishna conscious than me. And that may not be true. You may be very useful. You may be a very good devotee. But because you're feeling useless or you're feeling maybe not so intelligent or so sense-controlled, whatever it is, your thinking, your feeling is going to dictate your behavior, not the reality. So this is a very important point. Not how you are, but how you think you are. So, how you feel you are. So, one of the definitions of low self-esteem is to feel yourself different than you actually are. To feel yourself lower than you actually are. That's the definition. Now you might say, yeah, well, that's Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness means I should feel lower than I am. No, Krishna consciousness doesn't mean you should feel lower than you are. Krishna consciousness means you should feel as low as you are. Low self-esteem means you feel lower than you are. Krishna consciousness means you realize who you are, little tiny fragment spirit soul, you're very low. But low self-esteem means you have certain abilities, you have a certain level of intelligence, certain talents, and you think you don't have them. No, you feel you don't have them. So whatever you feel, that's how you act. That's a very important point. Now, there's another thing that's going on in Krishna consciousness, which is something is going on in Krishna consciousness that we have to be aware of. But I want to repeat what I said because I just realized that I'm recording this audio and I didn't say it. I didn't have the record button pushed. So let me just briefly say, what you think is not what you're going to act on, but what you feel is what you're going to act on. And you may think objectively that something is true, but in your heart you feel differently. Yeah, like let's say you could look at yourself and say, I know I could achieve this. But inside, intelligently, you know you can do it. But inside, you don't feel you can do it. Maybe you don't feel you deserve it, or something inside is giving you the feeling you can't do it. And that feeling is what you're going to act on. Not that you know you can do it, but how you feel. So that's an important distinction. And that's why many people who understand that they're capable fail in many areas because they don't feel that they can do it. They understand. So we were talking about low self-esteem, and low self-esteem means a person can recognize I'm intelligent, I'm capable, but they don't feel it. And there are different reasons why they wouldn't feel it. They may have been put down by their parents or other people may have made them feel that way. So that becomes impregnated within them. It's a certain feeling of incapability or I'm foolish. And then because of the feeling, that's how they act, not because of what they know. Okay, so I wanted to address another area of feeling, which is quite common in the Krishna consciousness movement, or it can be for many of us, is that I look at another devotee, particularly a god brother or god sister who's more or less my peer, and I'm seeing that they're more Krishna conscious than I am. And that can make me feel, for some of us, it can make me feel a bit, you could say, useless or not as useful as they are, which makes me feel a bit bad, like perhaps I'm somewhat of a failure in Krishna consciousness because I'm not able to do what they're doing or haven't achieved what they're achieving. Or I see a devotee who's very intelligent, who understands Krishna consciousness better than I do, and I feel myself maybe lacking in intelligence. Or I see a devotee who has achieved something that I'm unable to achieve, and I feel myself lacking in ability. So by this comparison, what happens? These negative feelings that I'm perhaps not really useful for Prabhupada, I'm not that intelligent, I'm not that strong, I'm not that able to control myself. Those feelings arouse things. And again, it may not be the actual reality, but this is something a lot of us go through, isn't it? So I'm looking at this devotee, right, who is very Krishna conscious, who actually should inspire me, but instead of becoming inspired, I'm feeling I could never do what they're doing. So I'm a failure for Prabhupada. There's something wrong with me. I should have been on their level, but I'm on this level. Right now, what is happening when this happens is we have been trained a little bit in this culture, as we said yesterday, we've been trained in comparisons. We tend to compare ourselves to others. And so if you compare yourself to others in areas where you're weak, naturally, if you don't understand this, you don't have a strong psychology, or you just don't understand this well, you could feel bad. And you could even discourage yourself and say, well, what's the use? Why should I even try that much in Krishna consciousness? Because after all these years, look at where I'm at, and look at where my godbrothers are at. They're so much more Krishna conscious. So I just, I don't have it. How are we supposed to think? There's two things we're supposed to think. Well, Prabhupada said, everybody's useful for something, and we know that Prabhupada accepted everyone's service. So it wasn't that Prabhupada was condemning anyone. Hey, you're not very smart, out of here. No service for you. We can't find anything for you to do because you can't do anything. So Prabhupada was never like that. So what are we supposed to think? We're supposed to understand, okay, what am I good at? What are my qualities? What are my capabilities? And they don't have to be as good as someone else's, but at least I can use them in service to help somebody, because somebody is out there who's going to benefit from what I'm doing, even if I don't do it as well as someone else. I do it well, I have some ability, so someone's going to benefit from it. The other problem we have to realize is that if I compare myself to another devotee who I perceive is more Krishna conscious, I could become discouraged. I could think, what's the use? Well, I'm never going to be like this person. Why should I try to be Krishna conscious? I'll never be as great a manager. I'll never be as great as a preacher. I'll never be as pure as this person. That could make me feel kind of useless or discouraged. So in some ways, we can discourage ourselves by comparisons to other devotees, especially godbrothers or godsisters, who are more advanced. Now, there's two problems with this. One problem, as I mentioned, is we may not try as hard because we think, well, I can never achieve what they've achieved, so why should I try? Why should I do anything? We can become extremely discouraged. We can discourage ourselves right out of Krishna consciousness because we feel kind of useless. But there's another very interesting point. And the interesting point is that sometimes we're viewing this other devotee in a not realistic way. We're imagining that this other devotee is more Krishna conscious or more perfect than they actually are. And in seeing that so-called perfection that they have, which actually they don't, but we see it in them, and not seeing it in ourselves, we can become discouraged and think, well, what's the use? I've been a devotee for so long. Look how Krishna conscious they are. Look at me. And I can't compare to them. Where in fact, they may not be as Krishna conscious as we think they are. We may have an idealized vision of how Krishna conscious they are. We may not realize that they're struggling just like we are. That their life is not easy, their life is not perfect. We may not realize all the help they're getting in executing, like they may be fantastically successful, but the reason they're successful is they have 3 people that are super brilliant that are helping them. And they may be less qualified than you to develop programs and projects. And you think, oh, they're doing so much. I've tried for 10 years and I'm doing so little. No, it's because these 3 people are helping them. And you don't know that. And so then you become discouraged by it. Or you think, oh, this person's so intelligent. He gives these amazing lectures. I don't have that intelligence. And you don't realize he read a book. And most of the ideas are coming from some book that a very popular writer has written, and he's applying it to Krishna consciousness. And you're as intelligent as him, and you could have done that yourself. But you're thinking, I could have never understood these things. Neither could he. He read them. Someone had a PhD in a particular topic, and he read it, and he got some insight that no one who hasn't done a PhD on this topic would have. And you're thinking, oh, he's so intelligent. And by thinking you're so intelligent means I'm not so intelligent. And by thinking I'm not so intelligent, there's a problem. You start feeling it. And when you feel it, the problem is you start acting unintelligently. This is like a very crucial point. However you think about yourself, however you feel about yourself, whatever your self-image is, that's how you act. So if I feel kind of useless, if I feel kind of, what can I do for Prabhupada? So many God brothers are doing so much, I can't do much. So many other people are doing so much. What am I doing? I'm going to act that way. I'm going to act as an incompetent person. There are studies on this, that many, many intelligent people who feel that they're not intelligent don't act intelligently. It's a reality. So what did we see with Prabhupada? Prabhupada was always encouraging us, yes, you can do it. And if you talk to Prabhupada disciples, they will tell you that they did so many things that they never believed they could do, because Prabhupada encouraged them. Do it, you can do it. Krishna will give you intelligence, Krishna will give you ability. And so they said, okay, we can do it, let's do it. And they weren't thinking, I can't do it, I'm incapable, I'm not smart enough. That was all gone, and they just thought, okay, Prabhupada wants it. He's encouraging me, so let's do it. We're going to do it. We're going to make it happen. And they made it happen. I mean, so many things happened. Very young, not so capable, but they made so many things happen because Prabhupada gave them the feeling that it could be done. You see, if you look at the spreading of Krishna consciousness and you ask, well, how was it so successful? It was an emotional thing. It wasn't an intellectual thing. It was that the devotees felt this emotion that Krishna consciousness is this new movement is enveloping the world with a revolution in consciousness. And Prabhupada as a general is leading this revolution. And we're part of this revolution. And that was exciting. There was a feeling that when we go out and give Krishna consciousness, we're actually contributing to changing the world. It wasn't an intellectual thing. If you want to spread Krishna consciousness, it has to be an emotional response. It can't be, I know I should go out on book distribution. I know I should preach. I know I should do this. But whenever that but is there, ultimately that but means you're not feeling it. There's no emotional connection with the intelligence. And when there's no emotional connection with the intelligence, there's no action. So, but whatever you're feeling, that's where the action is. So when Prabhupada was here, what were we feeling? We're creating a revolution. On the scale of emotion, that's a high emotional level. To be on the street talking to someone, but inside feeling that this conversation and every conversation I'm having and every book that goes out is contributing to a revolution that's never happened on this planet, a revolution in consciousness, which could change civilization. That's a pretty high level of emotion, don't you think? Well, that's what was causing us to go out and sacrifice our lives. It wasn't the intellectual, it was how we felt. So feeling, you can't divorce how you feel from how you act. It's impossible. You can divorce how you think from how you act if you don't allow the thinking to become feeling. But you can't divorce the feeling from how you act, because feeling is the precursor to willing. Feeling is the impetus for action. Thinking is subtle. You can think about so many things, but it doesn't impel you to act. I could think right now, I'd like to go here, I'd like to do this. But if I don't feel it, nothing's going to happen. I'm just going to get up and I'm not going to do anything about it. But if it becomes a feeling, then I'm going to do something about it. So how we feel about ourselves, I'm useless, I'm not intelligent, I'm trying to be a devotee all these years, and just look at me. That feeling is going to discourage us. It's definitely going to discourage us, because why would I really want to apply myself if I feel I'm kind of useless or hopeless? The only way I would apply myself is if I feel there is hope, or I feel that whoever I am, wherever I'm at, I can be Krishna conscious. So this is like the key, which I'm trying to bring this to the boiling point of the summation is, when we began Krishna consciousness, when we started doing it, we weren't very Krishna conscious, but it was relishable. So we would go out on Harinam, we would be blissful. We would distribute books, we would be blissful, we would take prasadam, mangalakti. Everything was blissful. We relished it, right? And the thing is, we were relishing it, but we weren't very Krishna conscious. But we weren't thinking, oh, I'm useless, I'm stupid. And we were just excited about it. There was a high emotion of excitement, wasn't there? You agree? Weren't we excited? Wow, I actually found the absolute truth. This is amazing. You know, none of my friends found it. This is true. It all makes sense. I'm happier than I've ever been. That was the emotion that was pushing us. And what was happening? Krishna consciousness was relishable. And at some point, if any of us started thinking, I'm not capable, I'm not intelligent, I'm not very Krishna conscious, there's things wrong with me, we couldn't then relish Krishna consciousness, because that thinking that there's something wrong with me, there's something inside, I'm just not as good as this other devotee, I'm not as capable, I'm not intelligent enough to be a good devotee, I'm not sense-controlled enough, I'm not blank, whatever it is, that then becomes the feeling, and then we act on that feeling. And so whenever we lack the ability to accept ourselves as we are, then we may end up discouraging ourselves by having negative thoughts about ourselves. So let's look at this in a different way, or in another way. Okay. As we were as new devotees, not very Krishna conscious, but we were okay with that, because we understood what? The process is blissful and the process works. So we were okay with wherever we're at, right? And because we were okay with wherever we're at, we could be enthusiastic despite all our faults, because we weren't focused on our faults, and our faults weren't discouraging us. So this is the idea. I am not you, you're not me, I don't have the abilities you have, you don't have the abilities I have, I don't have the intelligence you have, you don't have the intelligence I have. I don't have the ability to control my senses the way you do. You don't have the ability to control some of your senses the way I do. We're all different. We all have assets, and we all have demerits. But it's okay. it's totally okay. If I can be okay with myself, not in the sense of not trying, but be okay with, this is who I am, this is what I have, this is what I can do. So let me use that enthusiastically for Krishna's service, then I'm okay. But as soon as I think, well, my god brothers and god sisters who joined when I joined, they're more Krishna conscious than I am, that means something's wrong with me. Or I have this, tendency to eat too many sweets, that means there's something wrong with me. And if that something wrong with me becomes a feeling, that feeling becomes the way you're going to behave. And that behavior, obviously, and that feeling is going to discourage you. So I like to go back to this concept of when we were new devotees, because as new devotees, at least most of us, we didn't feel that way. We just felt like, okay, come as you are. Krishna accepts you as you are, and you can do devotional service. We have to think that way also. Like sometimes when I see some of my godbrothers who are doing amazing service, then I'll think, what am I doing? Compared to them, I'm useless, right? But objectively, I'm not useless. I'm doing many things. People tell me I'm doing many good things. People tell me I'm helping them. So objectively, I can sit down and say, well, actually, you're not useless. I mean, if you committed suicide, a lot of people would lose the benefit of your association and what you do. So I can objectify that. Well, then when I see my other godbrothers and godsisters doing things, I think, oh, I can't do that. I was reading Vishaka's book called 5 Years. I think it's called 5 Years and 7 Months. And Vishaka is an amazing writer, and I've written a book. It's being printed now. We're working on a second book, and as you may know, I write a lot of things. But I'm not a writer like her. I just don't have that ability. I mean, maybe I could cultivate it, but I presently don't have it. And so there's two things that I could feel when I read her book. I could feel inspired by her writing, or I could feel frustrated that I can't write that way. And I could actually feel bad reading her book that I can't write as well as she writes. Isn't it? Maybe you've been there. I could, like Havi Prabhu, who's watching this. He's an amazing musician. And sometimes when I go to his house, he plays and sings. So there's two feelings I can get. I can go, I hate you because you're so good. And I hate my karma because I don't have it to play that well and sing that well. Or I can relish it. And I think, this is amazing. You're so good. And just relish his ability. Isn't it? These are basically the two ways we can do it. So when we have this negative self-esteem and we think, well, I'm supposed to be as good a writer as Vishaka, and if I'm not as good a writer as Vishaka, then why even write? Or I'm supposed to be as good as a musician as Havi Prabhu, so why even lead a kirtan if I can't sing like him? That would be a very unhealthy way to think, obviously, right? But rather, the proper way to think is, Krishna's given me some ability to write, he's given me some music ability, so whatever it is, I'll use that with sincerity in Krishna's service. As we said yesterday, sincerity is what's most important. And so therefore, okay, Krishna, I accept. I have this much writing ability, this much speaking ability. Maybe, maybe someday I'll get on TED. I'm actually trying to get on, maybe I'll get on TED and it won't be like the best talk ever because I'm not the best speaker ever. But okay, I tried. All right, it's okay. That's what I can do. And if I feel good about using whatever abilities I have in Krishna's service, then I'll be encouraged in devotional service. If I feel bad that I don't have the abilities of others, I don't have the intelligence, I don't have the dedication to devotion, I'm not able to produce the results that others produce, then I start feeling bad about myself. And when I feel bad about myself, I can't act productively. Prince, you have a question, you can ask it. It's fine. So, again, it goes back to this feeling. The feeling I have of who I am is how I act. So if I feel I'm okay, I have certain abilities, I can use them in Krishna consciousness, then I will act enthusiastically in Krishna service. If I feel, I'm kind of useless, I'm not very good at this and that, what's the point? What have I really done for Prabhupada? What have I really done for my spiritual master? What's the use? that feeling will discourage me. And it can discourage me right out of engaging in devotional service. So it's a very, very important distinction. Self-image and feeling are what causes us to act. We won't act differently than how we think about ourselves. And that's why Prabhupada was always encouraging us. He was saying, you're intelligent, I'm very pleased. I'm very pleased with you. Continue in this way. Krishna will give you intelligence. As Prabhupada, when one devotee said, Prabhupada, I feel useless. And Prabhupada said, Krishna has made everybody useful for something. The real problem, and we discussed this a little bit yesterday, and the problem I see it is that in our society, comparisons are everything. Everybody's comparing themselves to one image. Beautiful, slim, rich, and successful. And if you're beautiful, slim, rich, and successful, then you've made it, you've achieved it, isn't it? You've arrived. And if you're not beautiful, you're not wealthy, you're not slim, and you don't have a big position, sorry to say, you're a loser. Even though you could actually be happy with what you have, actually you're a loser, because this is what society has told you means to win. So, when you're in that frame of reference, then what happens is people who could otherwise be okay with who they are and self-accepting and happy aren't, because society told them, you can't be happy if you don't have a lot of money, you're not successful, you don't have big muscles or big whatevers, and you're not beautiful. You need plastic surgery, you need to get a better position, upward mobility. Come on, get it together, loser. And that's diametrically opposed to Krishna consciousness, because Krishna consciousness is live with what is essential. Live simply. Be happy without much, isn't it? Be happy with who you are. Hey, you can be a very happy Shudra. No, Prabhu, I have to be a Brahmin. If I'm not a Brahmin, then I feel inferior to everyone. No, it's good you feel inferior. That's humility. No, I can't feel that way. Now, this is what our society's doing to us. And people say, yeah, if I'm humble, I get walked over. That's, I have to move forward. I have to get a position. I need respect. People need to see that I have a degree, I have a position in this company. That's what it's all about. And that's undermining our sense of self-acceptance. We can't accept ourselves who we are. So we discussed this yesterday, this homogenous culture. Everybody's got to be, this is the criteria. And as far as education, you got to be a doctor, lawyer, scientist, engineer. That's it. That's what's important. And if you're not, then, you're not going to get really a well-paid job, and people won't respect you. So we can't say that this isn't infiltrating our consciousness, because we live in a culture which is programming us this way. So self-acceptance is much different. This is the story of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta congratulating one of his disciples who distributed one magazine for one piece. It did very good. What was he congratulating? He was congratulating the effort, not the result, not the ability, not the level of intelligence. And that's where love comes in. So Krishna, I have some good news for you. Krishna loves you despite your faults. Is that good news? Aren't you happy? Celebrate. And Krishna will allow you to engage in devotional service despite all your faults. He doesn't care. Good news, right? So, self-acceptance is necessary. And I think as young devotees, we all accepted we were so appreciative that we could do devotional service, wasn't it? We were so appreciative we could do devotional service that we didn't really look at our fallen condition. We just wanted to do devotional service, and we grabbed it. And it has to be the same today. We have to feel the same, that same way today. Have you ever heard the sayings that go something like, enjoy the ride, not the destination? In other words, the concept is people are thinking, when I arrive at my goal, then I'll be happy, and I won't be happy until I achieve it. That's another social programming. When I get this success, when I get this money, when I get the new muscles after my 3 months of working out, whenever it is, when my book becomes the #1 bestseller. Then I'll be happy, which of course is an illusion, and even non-devotees understand that. So what a lot of people say is, enjoy the ride, enjoy the journey. So I think that's a perfect analogy for Krishna consciousness. We have devotional service. It doesn't matter if you're on this level, this level, this level. It doesn't matter if you have this ability, this ability, this ability, this level of intelligence. None of that matters, because Krishna consciousness is relishable. Right now, when you chant, right now when you read Bhagavatam, right now when you do devotional service, you can relish it despite what you've accomplished, despite your abilities, despite your level of advancement. It's relishable at every level. Of course, you could say, well, isn't it more relishable when you become more Krishna conscious? Yes, but it doesn't mean it's not relishable now. So the trap is when we think, oh, I'm not that good, this devotee's better, what's the use, I can't do anything right. That's the trap. Then I can't relish Krishna consciousness, because internally I'm feeling something's wrong with me. Now, yesterday and in many, many lectures we've talked about this, that sometimes devotees mistake this and think, oh, actually I'm becoming humble, I feel bad about myself. But generally speaking, for most of us, that's an unhealthy psychology, and it results in becoming discouraged. We end up discouraging ourselves. I'm so this, I'm so that. Who cares if I do my devotional service? Who cares? Nobody cares. And does my spiritual master even care? Does Krishna even care? And why would Krishna care if I go away? Nobody cares. All of this, that's all due to negative self-image and lack of self-acceptance. When I accept myself, okay, this is who I am, this is how I am, but I can still engage in devotional service with whatever abilities I have, and I can always do something for Krishna, and I need to do something for Krishna for my own purification. And what does Krishna say in the Gita? Devotional service is relishable. It's joyfully performed. And so to perform devotional, I would say, you could say this is kind of a regulative principle. To perform devotional service joyfully is a regulative principle. I think that's an important point, especially in our society today where so many people are suffering from low self-esteem. To be happy in Krishna consciousness, that has to be one of our standards. Like I cannot, it is not Krishna consciousness to beat myself down to the point where I am discouraged. To beat myself down to the point where I feel like, what's the use if I even chant? I can't even chant good rounds. Even if I do, nothing's going to happen. What's the use of trying? I've not really done much in Krishna consciousness. Everything I did was my first 5 years as a devotee. Since then, I'm just a fallen soul. I haven't done anything. We should see that as directly opposed to the principle of Krishna consciousness. The principle is to be happily situated in Krishna consciousness. To be happily situated in Krishna consciousness, I have to be self-accepting. That is okay. Wherever I'm at is okay. And I can relish Krishna consciousness. That's the point. To relish it. Anyone can relish it. At any position, we can relish it. And if we do anything to ourselves which minimizes our ability to relish Krishna consciousness, then I would say you could see that like breaking a principle, breaking a fundamental principle of Krishna consciousness, because we're turning against ourselves by not being able to accept ourselves with all our faults. We turn against ourselves, and then we just we are so good, potentially, we are so good at discouraging ourselves, but at the same time, conversely, we can be expert at encouraging ourselves, because the nature of devotional service is encouraging, and the nature of our bad psychology can be discouraging. Oh, what's the use? I'm so this, I'm so that. Now, when we're talking about Prince, your first question is answered on my website in the course on finding your Dharma. And this question you're asking now, how to overcome self-negativity, is being answered in all these classes, so you can listen to it. Let me just shed a little bit of light on self-negativity. I have a lot of experience with this in counseling, and then after I've done counseling and kind of got my head around this issue, I read some books on low self-esteem, particularly because so many people were coming to me with low self-esteem issues. And I was seeing it was very, very difficult to pull them around just with what I understood of it. And then I started reading books. Many of the books confirmed what I realized, but I felt I needed to read some books to help people get over the hump, because sometimes it was difficult. And so one of the things that I realized and also understood from reading books is that what Prabhupada was doing for us, he was putting in a lot of very positive, I could call it affirmations or very positive thoughts about our ability to be Krishna conscious, that you can be Krishna conscious in this life. Prabhupada said it over and over and over and over again, to such a point that in a sense, you don't need confidence in yourself, you need confidence in the process. You just need enough determination and intention to do the process, because the process will do it for you. So there's a different kind of self-confidence that Prabhupada put in. Okay, I may be useless, stupid, whatever, incapable of doing anything really that well, but the process of Krishna consciousness, the holy name, and following regulative principles and devotional service and reading Prabhupada's books has the power to make me a pure devotee, despite of my disqualifications. So in a sense, what Prabhupada was doing was helping us transcend any kind of negativity we might have about our inability, by saying that you actually don't need ability, you just need enough determination to do the process. Don't give up, struggle, just keep doing it, and the process will do it all. So whether you feel confident or not in the process will do it. Of course, philosophically, you should feel confident that it can do it. That is a requisite, because that's where your faith comes. You need enough faith to say, okay, I may be useless, but if I do this process, I can become successful. So in terms of raw material self-confidence, this is a little bit different, because this is global, you could say global self-confidence. The process works. It doesn't matter who you are. Thakur born as a Muslim, becomes Namacharya. There's so many examples. Magari the hunter. The process works. Magari the hunter is very disqualified. Jagat Mata are more disqualified than any of us. At least they're playing the part of people more disqualified. So it's proof that disqualification has nothing to do. So if you think, you're useless, whatever, your self-confidence has to be more in the process than you. As long as you are willing and have faith in the process, and you're willing to execute it, the process will do everything. That's all the self-confidence you need. Now, if you say something foolish like, but I don't even have the self-confidence that I can execute the process, then now we're running into a psychological problem, which in many ways Prabhupada sort of overcame by encouraging us, by telling us, you're intelligent, you're capable, and so forth, even though we didn't think we were. But to address Prince's question, and to address everyone in general, to understand, why would somebody feel, other than a sentiment coming from Krishna conscious, that I don't feel very qualified? That could be a very Krishna conscious sentiment. It could be a manifestation of humility. But if it's a manifestation of low self-esteem, where one doesn't feel qualified enough to be enthusiastic to engage in devotional service, why would one feel that? Well, the answer is because it's been programmed into you by other people. And if enough people tell you, you're not as good as this person, you probably develop a mentality to compare yourself to others, and then you're going to get in that loop where you compare yourself to devotees who are more advanced, and rather than being inspired by the advancement, you feel bad, like there's something wrong with me, which is so unfortunate, because more advanced devotees can greatly inspire us, yes? But if we have this negative mentality where we've been programmed to compare ourselves to others, always to feel like, well, I'm not good enough, then I see a more advanced devotee, and rather than appreciate what that devotee is doing and appreciate how he's pleasing Prabhupada and become inspired in some way by that, I just become envious, or I just become depressed. I don't want to see this devotee because he makes me feel like there's something wrong with me. He makes me feel bad. He makes me feel like I should have done what he's doing and I'm not. That's because comparisons have been programmed into us. Or it may be because of this, that, why aren't you as good as this person? Or you should be doing as good as this person. So generally, that's where it comes from. It comes from other people, or other people telling us, you're not that good. Or it can come from experiences. You can be around people who are better than you, and they make you feel not so good. And so you grow up feeling less because you're, like I grew up around people who were older than me. All my friends were my best friends were 2 years older than me. So they were all more accomplished. So in comparison to them, I kind of felt a little less capable, a little less intelligent, which actually wasn't good for me because, I grew up feeling like I'm not as good or smart, right? I mean, I understand that. It didn't really impregnate too deeply, but it did have some effect. It's natural. If you're around people better than you, and you're a young kid, you think, oh, I'm not so good, or I'm not meant to be so good. So there could be experiences we have. All these things, the point of this talk is that all these things can have an effect on our Krishna consciousness when we see a devotee who's more advanced, and then we don't feel good. We actually feel bad about ourselves. So if you feel bad about yourself when you're with a god brother or god sister who's doing more service than you, who's more Krishna conscious, it's likely that you've been impregnated with some you're not as good enough ideas, or something's wrong with you, or comparison ideas, or someone in your life programmed you to think there's something wrong with you, or you made those comparisons of your own when you were growing up, or in another lifetime you felt that way, or it may be that due to lack of self-esteem, you have such a strong need to be honored and recognized. When another person is honored or recognized, it makes you it just hurts you. So it's interesting because a lot of times when someone is honored and we don't feel good about it because we feel like we should be honored, or we don't feel that great, we generally think it's a spiritual problem. It's a lack of humility. And it might be, but it might be an emotional or psychological problem, that we have a very, very strong need to be honored because we have some low self-esteem. We don't feel that we're very good. You realize that arrogance often is a compromise for people with low self-esteem. You think, oh, this guy's so proud, he's so full of himself. It may be that he's not actually full of himself. He actually is very empty inside, and he has to project this image to get other people to validate him, to make him feel good, because he doesn't feel good about himself. So if you're looking for validation from other people, it may be that you lack self-esteem, or you don't feel good or confident about yourself in different areas. And you need it from other people, and you may act in an arrogant way to get it from them. So obviously, these are psychological problems which affect our Krishna consciousness. So the purpose of this class today is just kind of look out and see how you're acting in this way, and then try to come to a point where you just say, okay, I am who I am, and this is who I am, and this is what Krishna gave me, and I can be okay with this. And then try to focus on what you can do, not what's wrong with you and what you can't do, or what's better than you in others in a negative sense, but just focus on what you can do, and relish Krishna consciousness. Wherever you are in Krishna consciousness, relish it. Now, Prince is asking, what's the difference between feeling low self-esteem and feeling self-negativity? There can be subtle differences. I would say generally it's the same thing. Self-negativity, you would have to give examples. But again, I want to make this point that we made in the beginning. If you feel negative about yourself, and it's a feeling, you're going to act that way. And when people feel negative about themselves, when it gets very serious, they can do harmful things. For example, one of the most harmful things we can do is to chant bad japa, or not chant japa at all, or give up our sadhana, right? So you might think, why would we do that if it's harmful? Or maybe there's a lot of self-negativity, and then, deep down there's some kind of self-hatred. Like you look at yourself and you think, I'm bad. I don't like myself. I hate myself. If I actually hate myself, then conceivably it would be very easy to do things which are detrimental, like chant bad rounds, or don't chant at all, or give up sadhana, or break regulative principles, because I hate myself. And who cares? Who cares if I go back to Godhead? I deserve to suffer in hell. In fact, I'm going to make sure I suffer in hell. This is subtle. I'm not going to be Krishna conscious. That way I'll get what I deserve. I don't deserve to be Krishna conscious. Now, do people actually think like this? Yes, they do. Are they aware they think like this? Most often they're not aware. And so when somebody's giving up Krishna consciousness, and especially engaging in material activities, it may, not in all cases, but it may be due to this reality that they just don't care. They have a degree of self-envy and a degree of self-hatred to the point where they're not even willing to care for themselves enough to take the opportunity to go back to Godhead in this lifetime, which Prabhupada gave, which is so rare. It's so precious. And so I'm not saying that you necessarily feel this way, but I'm saying it's something to reflect on. And I would say that whenever we feel we're losing enthusiasm in Krishna consciousness, there may be a degree or a drop of that self-envy or self-hatred. In my study of psychology and human nature, I see that all the conditions which we considered clinical diseases, mental health diseases, many of those conditions, everybody has them, but just to a little degree. Because when you have them to a little degree, you can function. I might feel bad when I see a devotee who's more advanced than me, but it doesn't ruin my day, ruin my life. I get over it, in 3 seconds. Okay, Mahatma, get over it. This is stupid. Okay, right? But some of us don't get over it. Some of us hold on to it. It's like resentment. Somebody does something. Okay, get over it. You didn't like what they did, get over it. You're over it in 3 seconds, 3 minutes, 3 hours. Resentment, you hold on to it. So it's everybody feels bad when they're hurt, but resentment means you hold on to it. You won't let it go. So it's a more on the continuum. It's more serious. It's a higher intensity emotion. So, I just sense, and you can reflect and see if this makes sense to you, that there's this feeling of, sometimes just wanting to give up spirituality. Like, that feeling ever comes, I don't care. There's got to be some self-hatred or self-envy mixed into that psychology. That, why wouldn't you care about yourself? Doesn't make sense. So Prince is saying, due to the low quality of sadhana and laziness and low self-esteem, that I'm not able to match up to devotees. Yeah, that may be there, but I would say the equation is the low self-esteem can be the cause, or most likely is the cause of bad sadhana. Maybe that's what you meant, or laziness. There's got to be some sense of self-care to be Krishna conscious. There's got to be some sense that I am worth it, that putting energy in to Krishna consciousness is worth it. My life is worth it. My service is worth it. Because, we've heard Krishna doesn't need our service. Prabhupada doesn't need our service. Prabhupada accepts it. He takes it. That's a blessing for us. Krishna doesn't need our service. So if you think Krishna doesn't need my service, Prabhupada doesn't need my service, then if you have low self-esteem, then you could think, okay, well, what does it matter? If I don't go back to Godhead, who cares? What does it matter if I don't serve them? So that sense of that, if you have any so here's the point. Okay, this is very interesting. I could go on this for hours. If you have sufficient levels of self-hatred, of self-envy, of low self-esteem, there are aspects of our philosophy that will resonate with you, and instead of those aspects of philosophy pushing you up, they'll actually push you down. And this is an example of it. And this is amazing. And this is why when devotees say, is it important to understand our psychology? I always say yes. And a lot of devotees will say, no, it's not important, we don't need to. But the point is that if you hear something like Krishna doesn't need our service, then if you have low self-esteem or a sense of self-hatred, then that could resonate on that level. That statement could resonate with you in the mode of ignorance and discourage you. Isn't it? If we glorify the service of another devotee, that could resonate with your lack of self-esteem and discourage you. What's the use? Why should I try? I'll never be like that. It's possible. So that's why I talk a lot about these topics, because I've seen, and it's so unfortunate, I probably should write a book about it. All I need is another body and a little more money so I can sit in my office and don't have to do anything else and write this book. But I have seen in my counseling work that we take a philosophical point, we put it into a psyche that's not healthy, and that philosophical point causes the devotee to go down. When that point obviously is meant to purify and uplift, it actually discourages. And I think this is quite serious, because I think many people are coming to Krishna consciousness with not healthy psychologies, and then when they read certain things, it's going to upset them, it's going to have negative effects. Even for some people, it causes them to leave. So I don't want to be part of a movement that said such things. But what was said was not bad. What was felt by the person by what was said, because of their psychology, was bad, and it discouraged them. And it may have discouraged them right out of the Krishna consciousness movement. It's such an interesting point. And now that I'm throwing this out to you, I just want you to be aware, if you ever read anything, or anyone ever else reads something or says something that Krishna conscious that seems to have a negative effect on them, it's likely because of negative psychology, that it's resonating with something in themselves, and that's where we get caught up with this whole confusion between humility and low self-esteem. There's so many devotees are confused, and they actually have low self-esteem, and they're putting their low self-esteem, they're magnifying their low self-esteem because they think it's humility, and so it's actually, in the name of humility, it's actually bringing them down. And it's so unfortunate. It's like we're striving to become humble, but the way we're doing it for many is to take the Krishna conscious perspective of humility, which is transcendental, and connect it with my low self-esteem. Because I'm comfortable with low self-esteem, I can relate to it, and then try to magnify my so-called humility as a manifestation of low self-esteem. And the result is I just feel worse about myself, and I feel more discouraged. So I'm going to read something that Ajita Devi has just said. It is true. Today I read a post that in a morning walk, Srila Prabhupada said, if we are unhappy, then we are not even devotees. We're just making a show. Then after reading this, it really makes me feel, see more. Whoops. I did the see more. It really makes me feel low, because every now and then I still feel unhappy. Exactly. Like, okay, Prabhupada said we should be happy. Ajita is not always feeling happy. So now that statement makes Ajita feel bad. Actually, I got in trouble once for saying this statement, that some devotees were distressed about the situation, and I said, we should all be happy. Prabhupada wants us to be happy. And then it was taken as I wasn't exactly sure how it was taken, but maybe it was taken as a criticism of them, that they're not Krishna conscious because they're not happy. So, see, the point is, okay, let's take Ajita's case. Okay, Ajita may think, okay, I'm not always happy, and Prabhupada's saying, if I'm not happy, I'm not Krishna conscious. So then Ajita should think, so Ajita was thinking, oh, now I'm discouraged. I feel like I'm not a devotee, because Prabhupada said if you're not happy, you're not a devotee. That makes me feel worse. The other way is think, okay, I'm not a devotee, so what can I do today to be a better devotee? That's a positive way. A person in a positive frame of mind would think, I need to learn I should always be happy in Krishna conscious. So what do I need to do every day to be happy? Maybe I'm not chanting well, maybe I'm not reading enough, maybe I should learn shlokas. I used to like to learn shlokas. Maybe I should do bhajans every day. A devotee will take it in a positive way. Prabhupada's saying to be a devotee, I have to be happy. So what can I do to be happy? See, that's the way to take it. But if we have this negative psychology, then it makes us feel bad. Oh, I'm not a devotee. I'm not very good. Look what Prabhupada said. I'm not even a devotee. What's the use? Why? You see that whole downward spiral? It's become a real problem. And I didn't notice this. Maybe this problem existed when I was a young devotee, but I didn't notice it. And I think this problem is very common today, much more common than it was when I was a young devotee. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe it was just hidden in the closet. Maybe no one was coming out with it. But I don't remember devotees going through this so much. I remember devotees, of course, everyone's struggling, but still, always relishing Krishna consciousness and not, beating ourselves up to the point. Some people say that to be success spiritual. Yeah, that's good. Yes. Be success, be spiritual. That's good. So, I'm not saying that devotees don't feel bad, that devotees don't lament, that devotees don't feel they could be better, that devotees don't see another devotee and think, I should be doing service like him. But when they do it in a healthy psychology, it becomes an inspiration. In an unhealthy psychology, where there's a lack of self-esteem, it becomes a problem. And so if you have a lack of self-esteem, it's probably because people impregnated you in some way when you were growing up. In some way you're not good enough, you're not beautiful enough, you're not smart enough, you're not as good as the next door neighbor, your brother, your sister, this student. Some way somebody made you feel that something was wrong with you. And when you became a devotee, you brought that in, and it's still there. And we all have it because we're not perfect. But when you have it to a degree where it turns Krishna conscious statements into something negative, that's a problem. And although this, you may have never heard this before, but sometimes all you have to do is solve that low self-esteem problem, and then all those other problems in your Krishna consciousness, they go away. Because now you're okay with who you are, and you can be enthusiastic from the platform you're at, wherever that is, and relish Krishna consciousness from there. Now, I'm not saying chant less rounds or do less sadhana, but sometimes it does happen that somebody struggles and they have to go to 8 rounds. And then somehow or other, they're all, they become okay with that, their guru is okay with that, and then from that platform, they gain enthusiasm, and with that enthusiasm, they come back to being able to chant 16 rounds. But with that beating themselves up mentality, a lot of times what happens is they're beating themselves up and they still can't chant 16 rounds anyway. So they're only chanting 8 rounds, but they're in this very negative mood and they never get to 16 because they're just, I'm so bad I don't chant 16. Okay, you're bad. You're not chanting 16. Whatever. What can you chant? Okay, you can chant 8. Okay, chant 8. Be enthusiastic, relish it. Can you do it? Yeah, I can relish it. I can do that. Okay. What's going to happen if you relish and enthusiastically chant 8? Eventually, you're going to want to chant more. So negative psychology, it doesn't work. Humility isn't negative psychology. That's the point. Humility means to feel that I need Krishna's mercy, to appreciate other devotees are better than me and be inspired by that. It's a totally different world. And if we have low self-esteem, low self-confidence, negative self-concept, self-hatred, it's going to be extremely difficult to be Krishna conscious if those problems are beyond a certain threshold. I mean, we all have them a little bit. But the more we have a healthy psychology, the easier it's going to be Krishna conscious. That's the point that I wanted to make in this course. And I wanted you to be aware of how sometimes when you hear a class or read something or see another devotee's advance, if it makes you feel bad about yourself or discouraged, this is something you need to deal with. And in future classes, then we'll deal with how the ways to deal with this lack of self-esteem. But we've gone over 20 minutes, 20-minute bonus, so we're going to stop now, and I am hungry. And the real reason we're going to stop is I'm hungry and I want to take breakfast. Okay? If you have any other questions or issues, then you can email me. Just go on my website, mahatmadas.com, go down to the bottom, contact, and then if there are any further discussion necessary, we can talk about it. Hare Krishna. Thank you all for attending. Very honored that you're here today. And tomorrow morning, 6:15 Eastern Standard Time. That's East Coast of the U.S. We're going to have a class on dissatisfaction. We're looking into Prabhupada's statements on dissatisfaction, the cause of it. And I think it's very similar to this, because dissatisfaction for a devotee is a contradiction. And so we're looking at some of the causes of dissatisfaction, and I believe some of the causes are social programming, that we're not satisfied with who we are and what we have because we've been programmed to think we need to be something that we don't need to be. So that'll be an interesting discussion if you're able to come. We do it at 6:15 because that's evening in Australia, and specifically this is for Australian devotees. And then we do a class tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but that is for devotees in Ireland, and we do it on Skype. But if I broadcast it on Facebook, then I could have two. Yeah, I think, okay, let's try to do it. I'll try to broadcast it on Facebook at 7 o'clock. They do question and answer, so it's going to be for them. They're all grouped together. We're on Skype, and then I'm talking to them. But you can also hear if you want and participate. And we have some interesting discussions which are more evolve around social issues within the temple, of getting along, cooperation, how to become inspired, how to deal with certain common problems within a temple environment. So that may be of interest to you.